This is my next game, Fu Claivoyance, still under development, and this week my focus was to convert more levels and make this the most beautiful as possible. This is how these 3 levels look like before any conversion. The first one is Passage with underground mountains behind. It looks pretty bare and uninteresting. The second one is an underwater river passage. It lacks movement and is pretty empty, with little detail and a lot of repetitive space. Feels boring to walk through it, and with little difference between the beginning and the end. And lastly is a bridge, which is still under development, but I am planning to add a boss fight in this area. Again, it suffers from the same issues as the previous ones. Still needs more work, and even the floor is located at the wrong depth. As you can see, the player character is positioned behind it. Still, there is much more to be done in this scene. All of this was designed as bare levels to understand shape and flow of the game and what to expect from each one. So it is not only about adding more details, but it's about playing with lights and shadows to hide or highlight areas of interest. Shadows allows to enforce shape and depth. So let's see now how the first level turned with this in mind. This is now the same underground passage with mountains. Little details have been added and decorations, and to make it feel a little bit different as you walk through it. And as you discover more of it, you will see some kind of huge serpent body behind, in between the mountains in the back. You can barely see it in the beginning, but as you advance, you will see more of it. This will lead later to another boss fight. Adjusting color balance to make it darker also adds mystery. There are a few details that I experimented in this scene, and that allow me to make it better in the next scenes. The first one is the floor shadows. Let me hide those shadows so you can see how it looked before. It is very subtle and different, but the darker and brighter areas in this texture adds depth to it. I made a different texture for this, so I can draw it on top. In those scenes where I want to add this little detail, I could create a normal map or bump map if I wanted, but that will also make me change the way I draw textures and increase the batch count. So in order to keep it as simple as possible and be able to run it in any graphic card, I decided to add this texture instead. Gives a pretty convincing look to the floor. The next thing I added is the brighter orange areas, here on the border of the stones. It is very small, but this allows to define with a different color the end of the scene where you are located. There are a few more areas that can be improved, so I just added a little bit of orange on the columns and props located near the light sources. As you can see now, it looks a lot better than the original one. The next area is the underground river passage. This is how it looked before, pretty dull and uninteresting, and this is how it looks now. Follow similar principles found in the previous scene. I added those shadows to the floors and some part of the wall. It adds a lot of depth and defines well the walls and floors. Added the torches to add some light sources. This also defines each of the edges of the level. True, in this case, only 2 edges do work. The most difficult part to make, though it looks very simple, is the lines on the water. These little lines add movement to the water and depth. The lines closer to you move faster than the farthest ones, and there are many ways to implement this. One of the easiest and simplest is to create particles and animate them, but there is a problem. Since in my game you can rewind time, it can be very memory and time consuming to calculate particle positions back in time, especially since there are hundreds of these particles. It doesn't seem much, but there are close to 1,000 particles only in this river. So if I want to rewind time and save a lot of effort, the easy solution is to render all the particles into a texture and loop through each of these sprites, and that's what I did. This animation contains 1080 sprites, and if I had to draw by hand all the keyframes, I would have taken easily more than a week of work. So instead, I made a program to calculate and put each particle and make the animation loopable. It took me almost a day, but this is randomized and created once the game loads, and this is what this texture looks like. Each sprite is 150 pixels wide and 100 pixels tall. So in a 4K by 4K texture, I can put 1080 sprites, and I can randomize it at any time. But I think it only needs to be created once. So going back to the river, I only need to render about 8 sprites containing about 100 particles each, and this makes things very simple and easy to manage. Then I can adjust the color of the sprite. I think it looks a lot nicer than before and less boring to see. Later, I will add different enemies in this area. Again, shadows and light is used to define areas more clearly, and some small smoke to highlight some of the bottom part as reflection. Finally, the third area, the bridge. After fixing the texture positions, I just completed the base layer with some minor lighting. Still, there is much more to do here, but as start point, the orange borders and light moving adds a little bit of detail, but there is a lot in the background that looks the same. I will add some additional details behind to make it look less repetitive, like some small variation in the background or something interesting to see. If you have any idea, let me know in the comments below. All these three scenes use not so many sprites. The bridge area uses 247 sprites, the river area 186 sprites, and the passage with the mountains 353 sprites. Not so many for a large area of the screen, and not heavy even with so many small details. And that's it for this week. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to support my work, please click like and subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you do not miss my next update. Thank you so much for watching my journey. See you next week.